Nadine from Hopeful. I'm super excited to have Nick Lowry here, former NFL superstar. Nick, please give us a little introduction as to who you are.
Well, first of all, I just love your accent. My mother was British, so I love the South African accent. I
Thank you.
grew up in England and Germany and the United States. My father was very senior CIA, and my mother was in the first full class of women at Oxford. Her father was a British diplomat in Egypt, so very international background. And ended up playing in the NFL, the National Football League, for 18 years. I was the most accurate kicker in NFL history. I had the most field goals in NFL history. And that quest was an incredible teacher on dealing with pressure, on performing under great, huge audiences. But the other side, which is the schizophrenic side in a good way of my life, is before I made it in the NFL, I was rejected by 8 teams 11 times and didn't know I was going to make it. And I actually had already begun to work for United States Senator John Chafee of Rhode Island. And then I worked for him again in the next offseason after being cut by 4 teams and playing briefly with the New England Patriots. And didn't know I was going to make it, but just thought if I kept going. But in between, in the offseason, I worked for Chafee again on some really cool issues. And then finally, after the 11th rejection, I thought it was time to give up and get my serious job and work for a U.S. Senate committee on commerce, science, and transportation, on aviation safety and deregulation. And then the interesting story from this, which is so important for all of us to think about in our own lives, is I got a call from the Kansas City Chiefs and a voice inside me, and we all have that voice, and how we manage it. Sometimes we have more than one voice. Um, Said, you might want to find out what they have to offer. And so I had to trace this man I'd never heard of all the way back to his hospital room. He just had back surgery. His name was Jim Schaff. He was the general manager for the Kansas City Chiefs. And because I tried and because I believed it was worth it to maybe try one more time, even though I just started a permanent job. And Dickie, when you start a job with a committee in the Senate, it's a permanent job. They were all attorneys but me. And if your senator loses their election, you still have your job, which is not the same if you're working for a senator in their actual office, not a committee. But I just thought I should try one more time. And because I'd gone through all those rejections, because I had so many references and lessons on how to manage my state and how to get physically tougher and mentally tougher, I ended up beating out the greatest kicker in the history of the NFL at that point, Jan Stenner, who had been my idol. So think about that. I'm not only giving up a great job, but I'm going to stupidly go against the greatest kicker ever. And head to head every day, I outkicked him and took his job. And in the great meritocracy, which is the NFL, whoever deserves it, earns it, gets it. And then that was the beginning of an 18-year career, which led me to the Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Fame. And I'm still the all-time leading scorer for the Chiefs. My name is on Arrowhead Stadium on the wall there. And the Chiefs are the world champions 2 years in a row. And those are important lessons. And so today, I apply those lessons in finding my purpose, and absolutely spiritual health and integrating a spiritual purpose is everything. If you have that, it will take you through the dark times. It will make sure you can create, as you call it, mind fasts away from the things that can sabotage us past because of past traumas and missed field goals, if you will, abusive relationships, whatever it might be. And it can help us transcend that to a higher choice. So that's where I am today. I represent 5 companies, and I do something called Champions for the Homeless. If you Google, those that are watching, take 10 seconds and Google ABC 15 Champions for the Homeless. That was a week ago. We served our 68th Champions for the Homeless at St. Vincent de Paul in downtown Phoenix, a homeless shelter, 1,100 homeless. With incredible music, 1,000 gift certificates, top shoes. You'll see incredible shoes, um, tons of clothing, 1,000 pairs of underwear and socks and t-shirts, chiropractors, hair cutters, but most of all, unconditional love. And that is the teacher, because it's not just that we serve 1,100 homeless
Mm.
with a sense that you're not forgotten. We see you, you're important, and we help heal. But it heals people that may not even realize they need their own healing, that are supposedly normal. But we all have healing. We all have healing to do. And the life is beautiful. It's a long answer for you, but it's
Thank you.
today.
So, how did you find your spirituality?
Well, it's interesting. As I look back, there were all sorts of hints. My work with American Indians, for instance. I played for the Kansas City Chiefs. I went to Dartmouth College, which was originally the school for Native Americans with Eliezer Wheelock, and yet I didn't do anything there. And then I ended up founding Native Vision. And same thing with spirituality. My parents were Episcopalian, which my mother was, Anglican, which is very similar. I went to the National Cathedral School for Boys. I was an acolyte there, which was amusing. After a Saturday night senior year party, I'd come in and administer Sunday morning at the cathedral for the priest. um, but it really didn't penetrate. My parents didn't talk about spirituality, so it ended up being that sense, whether you're aware of it or not, or that magnet that attracts certain people into your lives. And my friend Jessie Coulter, who is a famous country Hall of Famer, she was married to Waylon Jennings, very famous. Waylon and Willie Nelson, very famous country singer, and she had her own #1 hit. And she spoke very comfortably about God and Jesus and the Bible, and that was a powerful influence for me. Then another friend of mine, Tori Brooks, was comfortable with that. So that helped me begin to talk in those terms, because I'd never had that modeled for me in my family. And maybe a little bit of discomfort, even, right, to talk about God and Jesus. Because in the end, if we're not careful, we are susceptible to what I call the influence of big religion and organized religion versus, I think, something that you can relate to very much, which is our personal relationship with our Creator. In my case, I believe in Jesus. I believe that He's given me unique gifts, and my journey is to work through all the rejections and the missed field goals and the failures and the traumas and the huge mistakes to finding that purpose. And I'm very good, and I love it, at helping people see that and do that, and joining me in different enterprises that help others as well. In Scottsdale, which you've been to, I met you at the Gainey Ranch Hyatt,
Yes.
a
Thanks,
seminar,
Lobster.
and a lot of pretty people, right? People
Yeah.
that are physically beautiful, but they haven't done, the culture hasn't done its work on the interior. And I think it's, gosh, there's First Samuel 6:17. There are a number of quotes about the beauty of God looking at your heart versus man looking at the exterior.
Hmm.
And in the end, I think as we get older, we do know that the real happiness, which is a joy, which is sustained, is an interior source. And so spirituality has become much more comfortable for me, because I know if I remember who gets the credit, um, then it continues to flow. And it's not me, it's the gifts from God working through me. And we've seen that at the Olympics, by the way. Sydney McLaughlin talking about it very comfortably, the world record holder, and just seeing how people see, as they see themselves as vessels, it becomes just a deeply rewarding journey, because it's not just about us, it's our connection to others. So that fills us with an empathy, which often is missing in our lives.
I do believe that we're here to serve humanity and inspire, and I believe that you do inspire people. Just by you going through the rejection that you did and working through it and not giving up inspires others not to give up as well. So thank you for that. And
Absolutely.
do you have any understanding of frequencies and energies or any synchronicities in your life that you can share with us?
Absolutely. And that's, by the way, the gifts of the spirit are this increased intuition. I get emotional talking about it. It was just, it's so beautiful. Just working with homeless people as they come through and being able to connect with them in a matter of seconds, and they know whether you really see them as people of value or not. That's the first thing. Just, I was told by Todd Stottlemyre, if you're not American, he's a pretty famous pitcher. He's helped us with his wife Erica with his company Corbito Poke, providing food for us at St. Vincent de Paul. And he said, as he sat next to me and we're bringing through and signing autographs, these posters and giving away gift cards, just a chance to say, hi, how are you? After they've had their dinner and they've gotten their clothing and the music's playing. And he said, I've never seen anybody so comfortable and good at this. And I'm like, well, gosh, I just love it. It fills me up. It's really a gift to myself to give this sense of connection with others. But I'll tell you, here's an example. I did a lot of work in bullying about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I was sent to Lake Geneva in not in Switzerland, but in Illinois, to a school district that had a severe bullying issue. Mm. And I had to present to the freshmen and sophomores, and then the juniors and seniors. And I knew only that there were two families that were very, very successful athletes that were attacking each other in a very personal way that had become sort of something that the younger kids in the school were beginning to think was okay, to be that hateful and to use really bad language and, you know, incredibly negative energy. And the principal and some of the parents asked me to help out. So what I'm going to give you is an example of the funny things that can happen where I, for instance, will use the analogy of a field goal that you have 9 teammates in front of you that are blocking for you, that are protecting you from the people that are rushing. 6'4", 6'5", great athletes trying to block your kick, which is a great analogy for life, right? There are people that don't want us to succeed, sometimes for the very reason that we're doing good things, and they're jealous, or they represent, shall we say, a more dark energy. And that offensive line represents, represents what we grew up with, the community, the family, hopefully a good one, protecting us. We didn't choose it, but that's that part of our lives. And then the holder, the person that catches the ball, that's snapped back, put down, and you're supposed to kick. That is your choice. First major adult choice is, who do I surround myself with? And because that ends up being everything in life. And personal, I know you'll agree with this, in your personal life, who you surround yourself with. Some say the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with is very true. What energy they bring out of you, what you learn, what you continue to learn, etc. And then there's you, the kicker, which is your own choices in life, to be able to manage your state and to have both the ability to focus on the ball, which is your daily work and discipline, prayer, meditation, goal setting, and the work itself. And the goalposts represent a purpose, right? So I'm telling this analogy, and I needed someone, number one, who represented the offensive line. So there are literally 1,500 kids in front of me spread out, and I pick one kid over here, and he represents the offensive line. And I pick another kid about 100 feet over here, and he represents the holder. Did the example. And at the end of the presentation, the head of the school district and the principal of the school were essentially running from the back of the room down to me. And they said, how did you do that? How did you know? I said, know what? They said, you picked the 2 people out of everybody in here. You picked the 2 people that are the whole that represent, that are this bullying controversy. Those are the 2 people. Those are the 2 families. And I mean, how could that have? I'd never met them. I had no idea who they were. So when you ask me examples of that, there's one right there. And I think it's when you put yourself in a place of spiritual clarity and you get your ego out of the way, which for athletes is very important because the ego does help us. We get caught up in Western culture with this confusion that ego doesn't have a role. It does have a role as we're young, especially in comparing and saying, I want to be like that person. I don't want to be like that person. We develop an identity initially based on that. But as we grow spiritually, we need that less. And we listen to our spiritual heart and essence, and attract those things that are much more transcendent and much more lasting. So anyway, beautiful stuff. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. That's the thing is I've done 68 of these Champions for the Homeless events. Now we do them 5 times a year on Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, twice in the summer. And we can always do more, but it is such a blessing. And just to help others, almost always receptive. Out of the blue, I'll say, hey, would you like to join us? And they're like, I'd love to. And then we tell them, bring your kids too, because if we can addict your kids to the only addiction that really is healthy, which is that service, that spiritual service and love, they will be attracted to that kind of addiction and not all the other horrible addictions that are afflicting us these days.
Exactly. Tell us a little bit more about what you've been up to, and is there anything you want to share with my viewers that where they can find you or what you're up to?
Well, besides, chairman of the Dinky Low, fan club,
Yeah.
you can find me at nicklowry.com or nicklowry.org, NICKLOWERY. And there's a lot of stuff there on Champions for the Homeless, or you can go to Lowry Speaks. And I will tell you also, I'm working with Tim Story, and I really want Tim to meet you. Because he's a deeply spiritual man, but he's brought spirituality back to Hollywood, which has been a very atheistic and evil place for many people, unfortunately, that came to Hollywood just to have great careers. And the message of spirituality in Hollywood, if you ever watch most portrayals of spiritual figures in Hollywood films, they kind of are tinny. They don't, more often than not, they are missing that spiritual depth. And
I hardly watch TV because I just feel so anxious, or it's too much darkness, on the TV lately.
Exactly. Well, Tim started doing things with Walter Matthau and some of the Jack Lemmon, some of the old guard of Hollywood, and then it morphed into this is at the age of 27, 28. And then for the next 15 years, he was doing a Hollywood, just actors in Hollywood, a Bible study once a week, and lived in Beverly Hills. And now he lives down in Newport Beach. But he's all over the world. I met him on the Think and Grow Rich tour, speaking tour, and we connected right then. And we just love each other. And he sees such importance in speaking with, like we began this discussion with, speaking with others in a comfortable way about their spiritual journey, just as you are doing, and reinforcing and supporting and ennobling others to find their path in this way as well. Because in the end, we're not, to quote a famous song, bricks in a wall. God's made us all unique. We have unique gifts, unique things and talents to bring to the world. And that allows us to paint our own masterpiece of contribution. And that's so important. If we think we're just like everybody else, there's a passion, a spiritual power that comes from knowing I am uniquely created by God to do unique, powerful, wonderful things. And in the end, if it's just one person that we've helped, we know it's worth it. So
that's exactly why I started the Hopeful Community page. I want to help others. I was so lost. I didn't know where to go, what I was doing, where to find my little tribe or my community. And that's why I started the community page, to help others mind fast, to help them challenge themselves and think different, and just get those little tools, those simple tools to just start every day to improving their life and living on a frequency of happiness, gratitude, and authenticity.
Yeah. Well, in the end, gratitude is a supernatural potion. And when we take a sip on a regular basis, it always keeps us in that good place. Speaking of mind fasting, right? What do I have to be grateful for? I saw a recent interview where a man was asked, why do we miss all these great things? Why do we seem to only notice the negative? And he said something I think very special, which was, because we are surrounded by blessings and they have become maybe a little bit of a noise, just a white noise. They're everywhere. So the exception is some of these negative things, and then we focus on them and give them too much power. So we have to then reintegrate this intentionality to look for the blessings. I mean, to get up right now and have this beautiful home where I'm at with my friend who's fighting in a powerful battle to provide justice for the 9/11 families. Just one example. I mean, I'm in this beautiful house, and knowing that my dear friend is fighting an incredibly difficult battle where he's confronting some of the most powerful forces of money and evil on the planet. That's just one incredible example. But then there's simple things too. I will tell you, let me just tell you my weakness. Can I tell you my weakness? Not that I mean, I have many faults, but I've also noticed when I am so busy that I'm driving on the road and I've got to get somewhere and I see someone on the side of the road. Oh, but I can't stop because I've got to do this. I'm late for this. And so I'm trying to keep myself more mindful of making that time, slowing down enough, allowing more time to have that ability to be spontaneous and help others along the way as well. Because it's really not to beat myself up, but it's my fault how I manage my time. It's my choices. And if I want to be there for people, sometimes they are strangers. And if I can be that, isn't it great too? I do this now much more intentionally, whether it's to somebody on the road broken down, or I see an elderly person at baggage claim yesterday. How about if I just say, hi, how are you? How's your day? What's going on? And you never know when those gestures mean a great deal to them, to interrupt their plays and to get them back on a mind fast towards gratitude.
That is so, so true and so powerful what you said. I also wanted to ask you how did you find your purpose? Because you speak about purpose often. How did you find that purpose, that drive?
Oh, all right. Well, this is the part where I have to show you how lucky I am. How many people had a mother who was in the first full class of women at Oxford? And by the way, she was born at 2 pounds, 2 ounces, and the Egyptian doctor in Cairo thought she had died, and the British doctor ran in and got her going. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be here. Her father was killed in a plane accident when she was 14. My father was in the first group of Fulbright scholars after the war. My mother actually was sent to she spoke literally the best German in England, and she was sent to interrogate, question Hitler's record keepers after the war. And then before that, I found out 2 years ago a secret she kept, which was she was sent to document the death camps for 2 years. And I said, how is that lucky? Well, because my parents had this unbelievable clarity about just doing their part, like so many did during World War II. And then my next door neighbor, when we moved into 6801 Hampshire Road, 6803 Hampshire Road, our next door neighbor at 6801 was Supreme Court Justice, U.S. Supreme Court Justice Byron White. He'd just been approved by the Senate. He was best friends with Bobby Kennedy. And this is 1962, and I was 6 years old. And there's Bobby Kennedy in the front yard welcoming him. And we had Kennedys, Michael Kennedy, David Kennedy, Courtney Kennedy at Potomac School, Bobby's kids. I had Neil Bush was on the basketball team. Marvin Bush was at my high school reunion a month ago. W. Brother. I mean, so I was surrounded by people and in a school and with people that it was simply, as we use in French, noblesse oblige, the message all the time: to whom much is given, much is expected, to do things with what you're given. And so that was an environment, incredible environment. And my dad ended up being chief of station, which I didn't find out till he died, was chief of station for the CIA in London when I was 9, 10, 11. going to one of the oldest schools in England. So I had, incredible, not necessarily lots of rich money surrounding me, but richness in culture, richness in character, lessons about contribution. So when you're surrounded by that, you then say, this is my norm. What am I looking for? And so I think those are seeds then that are planted in us that will then sprout. And the next question will be, well, what's my version of service? If my dad served the country and was an expert on Russia and Eastern Europe and kept us safe in the heart of the Cold War, and was so humble. I mean, I knew he was CIA, but I didn't know he was the man. He literally was the American M. If you watch James Bond, the British M. My dad would meet with MI5 and MI6. I did know that.
That's crazy.
But he kept it a secret. He actually was the chief. And we did that also in Germany when I was 12 and 13. So surrounded by that, those are powerful early age, examples, role models, etc. Sometimes role models of how not to be too, by the way, but for the most part, incredible role models about, hey, what am I going to do to make a contribution? And then we have the choice. Is it going to be in government, or is it more importantly to make sure it's a spiritual contribution? Because that in the end is eternal.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And my last question to you would be, what advice would you give to people experiencing an awakening and feeling a little bit lonely or lost at the moment?
Well, if the awakening is simply, I'm noticing things I haven't noticed before, definitely the intentionality to say, God, Jesus, God, what is this? What do you want me to do on a regular basis? Number one. Number two is, thank you, God, for these challenges that I might grow from them and become more clear in what you want me to do. And of course, gratitude itself, why do I have these great things to remind myself? That's, by the way, the most important, powerful word in the English language, to remind myself, to refresh my mind. So important. It's like taking a shower and washing off the dirt of the day and staying fresh to that purpose, which is unique to you. So if you're going through this awakening, as you call it, it is to ask the question, God, what do you want? What am I to learn from this? You remember Viktor Frankl going through the death camps, watching thousands upon thousands of people murdered. I was at Birkenau and Auschwitz last year. We brought 100 Ukrainian Jewish refugees from Poland from the Ukraine, from Poland to Israel, and looking at Birkenau, and where, literally 10,000 people the last weeks of the war were being killed every day in the ovens there. And Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, it was always about, what am I, God? What is this teaching me? Mm-hmm. So he remained so powerfully disciplined in his mind fast, I'm using your phrase now, that he could transcend being surrounded by suffering and evil of the highest and lowest order. So that is so crucial, is what does God want me to do? And then to take account, to write it down 1,000 times, to meditate on it on a regular basis, and then to take action on a consistent basis. And also to ask, what are my unique gifts? And those gifts may have been hibernating, but you will feel them and you will notice them. There will be an ease to them. And I in my book, which is called Naked Alone with 80,000 People, I talk about managing the inner conversation we have, which is between us, the most important conversation between ourselves and God. And so you're running on the field, and part of you is saying, this is the scariest thing in the world. There are 80,000 people, and it's so much pressure, and the goalposts look like they're tweezers. And then there's another voice, if you trained it, to say, trust yourself, trust your purpose, let it happen, let it go, be bold. Mm-hmm. And that voice is so crucial. And that is your voice that is most powerful and pure. And that voice will grow stronger. You will hear that voice more consistently as you apply it. And then all those other gifts of intuition, who you surround yourself with, who you gently push farther away because they're not in the same frequency. We haven't used that word today. Frequency is so important. And you notice it. Like I know now, I'm being very talkative with you, but I know
Yeah.
now that I can literally, because being present is so important, I can literally feel that I can expand my aura, my frequency intentionally. So it goes from this big to 20 feet wide when I practice it, and how that changes to be present, to notice the little beautiful details which feed your gratitude. Those are all gifts and those are all disciplines. They go together.
Truly inspiring. I thank you so much for your time today and for literally videoing from your friend's home for me. If all my
Absolutely.
if everyone can subscribe if they like this video, and I'll share the link of Nick's book and all the details to his website in the links as well.
Thank you. Instagram, by the way, is Nick Lowry 88. And I do have a biblical passage. It's very simple. Proverbs 17:17. Proverbs 17:17, which is essentially a friend, a true friend, brother, and a sister, is there at all times, is
Yeah.
there when it matters most.
Amazing. Thank you so much.